my beautiful bookish friends, I'm Bowen and welcome to my channel. This video is going to be my September wrap up. Somehow I managed to read 14 books in the month of September. I'll grant you that 3 of them were novellas, but it was also the busiest month of the year so far for me. One, it was the busiest at work that it's been all year, which is crazy because it's normally like May or like the height of summer. September, it's normally dying down a bit, and September was my busiest month, which is just bizarre. It was also my birthday, and then I went to Edinburgh, and then 2 of my friends had their 30th birthdays as well. It was just so busy, and I know so many September Virgos, which is obviously the best birth month and the best star sign. Not that I'm biased or anything like that. And yet somehow I still managed to read all of these books. So let's get into the books that I read in September. And we're going to start with Craving in His Blood by Zoe Draven. I gave this book a 3.75 and a 3 spice rating. This is book 2 in the series, and this follows the brother of the main character in book 1. Now in this one he's engaged to be married to someone else, which is a political alliance, but his fated mate, his person that he craves, is essentially a nobody and doesn't form any political alliance. So he basically keeps her locked away in this cottage and treats her like his dirty little secret until he's ready to get married for political reasons. And now don't get me wrong, she's very much okay with being in this cottage because the cottage used to belong to her father, who has since passed, and she's trying to find like connections and be connected to her lost father. But the fact that she's essentially his mistress and just kind of goes along with it just rubbed me the wrong way. The whole political aspect of it explained, I just didn't care. It just really bothered me. I will definitely be picking up more Zoe Draven books, and I'll definitely be picking up more in this series, but this is now, as it stands, up to date. But there's just something that kind of rubbed me the wrong way about that I didn't love it. But overall, I really did enjoy this book, and I really like Zoe's writing. It's just that general vibe didn't sit well. Then we have Possessed by Tanya Stone, which I gave a 3.25 and a 2 spice rating. This also kind of suffered with the same problem of he hid her away like he was ashamed of her, because he sees her having any influence over him at all as a weakness, so he basically hides her away as well. This seems to be a common theme with these 2 books, and I don't like that. I'm not a fan. The reason that this one is almost worse is because at least with Craving in His Blood there was emotional connection between the 2 characters. This, there was none. Both of the main characters were so painfully 2D. It just didn't really work for me, which is such a shame because this is a really pretty special edition with like the stenciled edges and everything. I just didn't really care for it. I mean, I like the fact that he wore a kilt and he had a tail. That was really about it though. Then we're on to our first novella, which is I Married Wojin by Regina Abel. I gave this one a 4-star and a 2 spice rating. With this one, you do need to read I Married a Minotaur first, because that one will give a lot of context into not only the characters, but the storyline underneath it as well, because this is sort of set in the middle of that one. And this is Wojin and Lana's story. He is so adorably awkward when it comes to his crush on Lana, and Lana is just completely oblivious. Like, Rihanna from I Married a Minotaur does genuinely have to point it out to her that he has a crush on her, and then when she kind of realises that, oh shit, this guy really likes me, she also starts to develop feelings for him. The only reason really why she didn't develop feelings for him in the first place is because she was so in her own bubble, which that's fair, I get that. I really liked Wojin when I read the first book, so reading his own little novella was just delicious. It's not very often that novellas that kind of go in the middle of a series are for me, but this I just ate it up, and it was really fun. The next book is going to be Cupcakes for My Orc Enemy by Honey Phillips. This one I gave a 3.75 and a 1 spice rating. For all intents and purposes, this book should really fucking annoy me, because Grandar, our orc male main character, is the definition of toxic masculinity. He doesn't know how to regulate his emotions. He yells at her for honest mistakes, the way she dresses, even when she's in pain. Like, he's just a bit of an asshole. But for some reason, because he's an orc, I found it really endearing. I'm genuinely concerned for my mental health, because if this was a human man, straight to jail. But I did enjoy it in the moment while I was reading it, so I don't know what that has to say about me. I think this is one of those books where the more I sit on it, the lower the rating would get. But I did enjoy it as I was reading it. And the other thing with this that kind of got on my nerves, just a little bit, and this is me being petty, but we know that I'm petty. During the sex scenes, she managed to go from 0 to 100 in like 0.4 seconds. It was so dumb. There was no build-up. It just took like the lightest brush and she was exploding all over the place. Like, where was the build-up? It didn't exist. I get it, you don't need to spend so long on them when it's a novella, but come on, something. Because I don't know as I would recommend it, but I did enjoy it, I think. I don't know, don't take my word for it or my own opinion on this one, because I haven't got a clue. The next book is going to be Claimed by Cthulhu by Wendy Guff. This one I gave a 3.75 and a 3 spice rating. Now with my wrap-ups, I generally don't tend to go into any spoilers. However, with this one, I'm not going to spoil it necessarily, but I feel like if I tell you the meet cute, which was just so entertaining, it will entice you to pick up this book, or completely dissuade you from it. But I feel like I need to tell you to get the whole vibe of the story across. So the meet cute between these two characters, we have a Cthulhu, obviously, and we have a human woman. And they're both scientists. So one evening she's going night tide pooling because she's studying all the marine life in this tide pool. And he's a Cthulhu, obviously, with the tentacles and everything, and he's just chilling in the ocean next to this tide pool. And she sees this tentacle come out and she thinks it's an octopus. An octopus are known to be like really friendly and everything, so she's playing with the octopus tentacle and stroking the tentacle and they're having fun. Turns out that's not an octopus tentacle. That was the Cthulhu's dick, and she accidentally just jacked him off. It was essentially a Cthulhu glory hole in the tide pool, and it was that ridiculous the entire way through the book. And honestly, I love it when it's that stupid. The thing with the monster romances is you kind of have to get your head around the whole anatomy of it, and this one had a very different type of anatomy for me to be able to wrap my brain around, but this was just so stupid and silly and fun. And I really am very much looking forward to reading more books from this series, because that's the type of book that I love, right? It doesn't have to be serious. I actually prefer it if it's not serious. I like stupid books. I like books that are just silly and fun, but have a little bit of heart to them. This one didn't have much heart, honestly. It was just mostly stupid. But fun stupid. I'm a big fan of fun stupid. I had a good time with this. I also read quite a few werewolf books in September, because apparently I was feeling that type of way. So starting with Ensnared by the Werewolf by Lillian Lark, I gave this one a 4.25 and a 2 spice rating. I really enjoyed this one. This book follows Jack and Belinda is a witch who specialises in curse breaking, and Jack is believed to be cursed to be in this mid-shift state between human and werewolf. And he's been cursed like this for quite some time now, and everyone that he's been to has not been able to help him. So he goes to Belinda, only to realise that she is his fated mate. And she is trying to do everything in her power to help him, because of course she wants to help her fated mate. But because he is very insecure about the fact that he is stuck in this mid-shift state, he kind of rejects her, and Belinda's just not having fucking any of it. She's like, no, you're my fated mate, that's not fucking happening. We will be together. Watch me. And this is like a really short little novella, but this is my first Lillian Lark book. I had such a good time with this one. Another werewolf book that I read was One True Mate by Julie Tyrrell. This one I gave a 2.5. Now my main issue with this, aside from the fact that it's a shifter book with no smut in it, and if it's going to be a clean romance, I haven't got a problem with it. I would just like to know beforehand, and I went into this one completely blind, so wasn't a fan of that. But the main issue was the pacing of this book was all over the fucking place. Our female main character in this one, Kelsey, is a werewolf, and she thinks that she's a werewolf because she's been bitten. She doesn't know anything at all about werewolf culture. So when she ends up working for this company that happens to be on pack territory, the person that she will be working for, her boss, ends up being her fated mate, and he knows immediately. But because she knows nothing about the culture of being a shifter, he keeps that, like, hidden. But he allows her to remain on the pack territory because he is the son of the alpha. So he has some say in whether or not she can stay. So a lot of people in the town don't like her because she's not respectful of their rules, because she doesn't know what they are. But she ends up working for him and is very professional for 2 years before shit all kicks off, and then she finds out everything. And then the romance very much goes from 0 to 100 very quickly. Like, you've got nothing for 2 years, and then all of a sudden, it's just everything. And the whole backstory and lore is going to be different for every book. It's just, it wasn't one that I was used to, but I didn't love it. The whole book just felt really dry. I don't really know how else to explain it. Honestly, if I didn't have the review already written out, I would have forgotten every single fucking thing that happened in this book. And the last shifter book that I read in September is going to be Dark Instincts by Suzanne Wright. I gave this one a 3.75 and a 3 spice rating. Now, I listened to the audiobook for this one because the audiobooks were included on Kindle Unlimited, and I listened to it on the drive back from Edinburgh. This was my first time listening to an audiobook that is funny with another person in the car. It's a good thing that I was driving, because if I had to make eye contact with another person while listening to Smut, I might have just exploded, because that was just weird. I mean, I enjoyed the book. We both did. But with the actual story itself, other than my side tangent, this was very, very close to being not like other girls. Our female main character, Ronnie, is a tomboy. She's an enforcer. Her mother looks down on her because she's not effeminate. There's nothing wrong if you are. There's nothing wrong if you aren't. Any woman that's ever been through a tomboy phase will probably have experienced this. So I get it. And Marcus kind of comes across as like almost the reformed playboy. When he starts flirting with her, she assumes that he's doing it either to piss her off or just out of habit because of the type of guy that he is. But he genuinely really likes her and he truly respects her. He very much trusts in her own ability and her own autonomy. Like, when she says that she's good and she's got this, he trusts that she's got it. Because he knows her power and he knows how strong she is. And he knows that she's got this. She doesn't need to be protected. Don't get me wrong, he will. I love that he believes in her power as much as she does. But I really enjoyed this. When it comes to shifter series, I think that this one is kind of my go-to. I mean, don't get me wrong, I probably only get through like one of them a year. I really do enjoy this book and I really like this series. Then we have Volume 10 of Spy Family by Tetsuya Endo. This one I gave a 3.75. This one is more like Lloyd's origin story, which is the spy main character from this series. And I don't know whether or not it's that I've left too much time between Volume 9 and Volume 10, but I feel like I'm losing momentum with this series. Now, there are a couple of ones in the more later volumes that I have really enjoyed, but honestly, I think the first 4 might just be it for me. Everything else is kind of just falling flat and falling mid, which is such a shame because I really love these characters. I really love the like little episodes in this and all the backstories, and I love Anya and the shenanigans that they all get up to in this family. But there's just something about it that's falling flat, and I can't put my finger on it and I can't really name what it is, but it's just too repetitive and too samey now. I don't know whether or not I'm going to continue this series because the fondness of it might just be from those first 4 volumes that I really loved. It might be more that the newer volumes are almost nostalgia for those first 4, but I just don't really care for it all that much anymore. Nowhere near as much as I did with the start of the series, which is such a shame. I do still like it. I wish I loved it. Then we have Finn Rhodes Forever by Stephanie Archer. I gave this one a 3.5 and a 3 spice rating. I think Stephanie Archer will always be an auto-buy author for me, but this is definitely the quote-unquote worst one that I've read from her so far. That might be because it's a second chance romance, and I'm not the biggest fan of second chance romances. I think my main issue with this is Finn Rhodes. Now, I am an eldest sibling, eldest daughter, and all of the trauma that goes along with that. Finn Rhodes is the youngest sibling, and he is the textbook definition of the youngest sibling. And it's basically a scientific fact that all youngest siblings are kind of a bit of an arsehole. And I don't mean that in like they're mean kind of way. I mean that they're charming, cocky, and like a smile will get them out of the most of the trouble that they're ever going to get into, which is normally all of the trouble. And yet somehow they just sail out of it. I'm not jealous or bitter at all. Can you tell? See, this is what I mean by eldest sibling trauma. I'm 30-fucking-3. You'd think I'd have gotten over this by now. Nope. But in this book, Olivia and Finn, they start dating, and it very much gives the same energy of How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. he is trying to prove that he is going to stick around this time, and Olivia is trying to make him break up with her to basically prove her own bias. So they get into like some really funny shenanigans in this, and I had a lot of fun reading it, but it was one of those books that if I was actively reading it, I was having a good time. If I put it down, I was very reluctant to pick it back up again. So I'm going to be honest, he is the least favourite of the brothers in the Queen's Cove series. I still love Stephanie Archer's writing. It's just this one was kind of a swing and a miss for me. Then we have The Pussy Next Door by Amy Award. I gave this one a 3.75 and a 3 spice rating. I don't know whether or not you're just getting all of the glare from the foiling on the cover, but this is like a special edition. It has really pretty sparkly edges, and this is one of the ones I got at Rare as well, so it's signed, there's a sticker, there's a cocktail thing, menu, no, recipe, that's the word. Jesus fucking Christ. There's also, like, not safe for work art print. This is the third book in her Kingsman Brothers series, and I've read book 1, and this is book 3. And this one follows Hayes, who is not the youngest sibling, but one of them. He's 21, 22, 23-ish in this book. I can't exactly remember. And he falls in love with the girl next door, which is Willa. All of Amy Award's books are plus-size romances, and all the ones in this series have some form of animal involved. So this one, obviously, is the cats, and as a cat person, I approve this message. Now, I'm not gonna lie, the writing is kind of cringy, but this is what I would call a good bad book. Like, it's not objectively good, but is it a fun time? Yeah, absolutely. I did prefer the first one more than this. We're not going to talk about the fact that I gave the first one a 3.5 and I gave this one a 3.75. I was feeling mean last year. But there were some plot holes in this that kind of made no sense to me. Like, they're trying to keep their relationship a secret from her brother. That lasts for a whole, chapter or two? There was absolutely no point in that being there in the first place. Even throughout the holes in the plot and the cringy writing, I really did have a good time with this. But, you know, there's cats in it, so I'm biased, what are you gonna do? Then we have Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. I gave this book a 4-star. Now, I read this one at the very, very start of September, and I will stand by that the start of September is still summer, so help me fuck. I am a summer baby, and I will be on that hill until I die. But this book was perfect for, like, autumn. So if I was embracing autumn around that time, then this would have been perfect. If I'd have been putting it off for this month, it would have been even better. But we live, we learn. So if you haven't read this yet, then I strongly recommend it for the autumn months. The in thing in books at the minute is cozy fantasy, which this absolutely fits the definition for. The whole atmosphere of this was just really cozy, and the banter between Wendell and Emily was just so much fun. They kind of filled in each other's blank spaces because Emily is really studious and very straight-laced, whereas Wendell is a lot more outgoing. They kind of make up for each other's weaknesses. Somehow, even though I stand by that the name Wendell, even in a fantasy book, is kind of ridiculous, it really worked here, and it didn't bother me, but anytime I have to say his name was Wendell, it makes me twitch. If your name is Wendell, I'm really sorry, but I think I'm more sorry for you than anything else. That makes me sound really mean. Emily kind of starts off as not very likeable, but realistically, she just doesn't people well. And Wendell does people well. So they work really well together. And I had a lot of fun with this. I think I'm definitely going to be picking up the second book in the series maybe next year and reading that next autumn. That sounds like fun. Then we have Defend the Dawn by Bridget Kemmerer. This one I gave a 3.5 star. Now, I don't want to say too much about this one because it's the second book in a series, but in this book, the main characters are on a voyage of sorts. They are trying to get from point A to point B. The female main character in this is completely fucking superfluous. There is absolutely no reason for her to be a character in this book. I do like the addition of the new character that we got in this and the new POV that we have, but the only reason for Tessa to even be in this book, really, is to cause conflict between two of the male main characters due to jealousy, which very much gives written by a man vibes, and to get her from point A to point B. That is it. Other than that, there's no reason for her to be here. I mean, the rest of the story was fine, but I don't care enough about it to continue it on. In fact, after I filmed this, I'm going to unhaul this and literally stuff it in the post probably today, which is why I have to film it today, because I've already sold it, so I'm getting rid of it. And I listened to this one on audio, and I listened to the first one in the series on audio as well, so if I really wanted to continue the series, I'd just get the audiobook. I don't really care enough to, if I'm honest. We know my journey with young adult fantasy this year. I just kind of need to give up the ghost. Speaking of ghosts and young adult fantasy, the last book I read in September is Before the Devil Breaks You by Libba Bray. I gave this one a 4.25 star. As far as YA goes, this series is kind of the exception to the rule. Now, this is book 3 again, so I don't really want to say too much about it, but the best thing about this series, other than the characters, and it's very clear to tell with the characters who is who, because they all have such distinct voices and such distinct personalities, especially given it's such a large cast. That was so well done. But the main thing with this entire series, and I've probably said it for every single wrap-up, is the way that it blends real-time history with the fantastical aspect of the book. Because it's set in the 1920s and we have the KKK and we have the segregation and the way that the people are treated and they're ostracized and essentially culling of people really actually happened. And I think that's what makes these books hit so much harder. And this one in particular took a lot of the darker aspects of the 1920s and the real world aspect of it all and put that into this book, which I feel like made it even darker. Now, I have been listening to this series on audio, and if you do read audiobooks, I strongly recommend getting the audiobooks for these, because the audiobook narrator does a spectacular job. Like, I am fully creeped out reading this young adult series just on her narration alone, and it is a single person narrator. Astounding. Honestly astounding. I'm currently reading the last book, and I'm very much looking forward to knowing how this entire series all wraps up. I also don't want it to be over, but I'm also looking forward to seeing how it ends. And that's it. That's all the books that I read in the month of September. So if you managed to get this far into the video, then leave the Virgo emoji in the comments down below. But for now, thank you so much for stopping by. It has been lovely having you here. And I hope to see you in another video coming very soon. Bye.